Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the latest edition of the JTwJE Podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Elyachar, the chief content producer and writer of JTwJE.com, a pop culture entertainment news website. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up and please subscribe to my channel. If you're listening to this on any of our audio platforms, please download this episode and other episodes as well. And please also give me a 5-star rating. I would really appreciate it. I am very excited to welcome this guest here. He is the CEO of Mashman Consulting Group. He's the founder of Mashman Investments and Mashman Properties. He's the author of The Personal Branding, a manifesto on fame and influence. And he's also the former host of the Chase the Vision podcast. Please help me welcome Isaac Mashman to the podcast.
Jacob, you should be an announcer for WWE, man. Don't mind me. Chugging my coffee. Excited to be here.
Thank you, Isaac. I'm happy to have you here as well. And I think it's a combination of like Arsenio Hall, Oprah Winfrey style education, and of course Johnny, and of course a classic Ed McMahon's Here's Johnny.
There we go.
All righty, Isaac. It is a pleasure to have you here. So let's get started. So when did you get interested in entrepreneurship, and how did that passion evolve and desire to pursue a career?
Yeah, well, if I was to look at my entrepreneurial journey, I usually talk about 2017 being the big start, which was when I was in high school and had a clothing line and saw network marketing as an opportunity I pursued for a couple of years. But it actually goes back farther than that. When I was in high school, I would say 15 or 16, I started with a lawn business, and over the summer I posted the entire neighborhood with flyers, and I had a trailer that hooked up to my bike that I was able to put my lawnmower on, weed whacker on, and I just went around door to door. And that was my first, I suppose, professional entrance. But I had that entrepreneurial spirit, always had that knack for creative, inventions, like in middle school even. But it was in my senior year when I thought that I could do something as a full-blown career. And that was a transitionary period from let me go to college and take the traditional path that I was pursuing to let me take this atypical path and jump in. And that's when I ultimately got involved with the industry of network marketing, did 3 different companies 4 different times. And then over the past 5 years, went from business to business until I eventually figured out, well, what I was good at and what I could see myself scaling and building, which is what I'm doing now.
It's an amazing road. And I was actually listening to your YouTube videos before we got on here. And I got to say, you were talking about scouts. I'm a fellow Eagle Scout. So
beautiful.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, I only hit Life Scout, so not Eagle Scout. In retrospect, I wish I worked a little bit harder, but Jacob, if I'm being honest, I don't think I deserved it. And so I'm not really worried about not hitting that rank. When I don't know if I'll put my future kid in Scouts or not, but it's one of those things where I feel like in order to work for something, you have to deserve it. And I don't feel like I worked enough during my senior year. Right before, I had a bunch of personal issues. And, I attribute a lot to Boy Scouts, though. That really made me who the man I am today.
Absolutely. No matter if you are not a lifer or if you're a Life Scout or Eagle or in all 3 proms, I think scouting has been extremely important to my upbringing. And my family, and actually my brother Aaron and I are the only Eagles as of this recording in our family.
Wow. Congratulations, man. What was your project?
My project actually was a neighborhood drive that benefited Hope House, which is a shelter in Kansas City that supported battered women and their children. And I actually donated a truckload of supplies, including children's formula, generally used towels, and everything to them. And it was amazing. And it was an amazing experience. I really hope a lot of the kids that are in school right now have the opportunity to go and do those kinds of projects and get back to their community.
Definitely. That's cool.
All righty. But I respect your hustle, Isaac, because it is amazing to see all the stuff that you have accomplished. And who are your business role models and how did they influence you?
My business role models are actually old world models. There are a lot of great mentors and people that I follow online that I attribute a lot of what I've learned to. some of those were in the industry of network marketing, but Andy Frisella is one of my biggest guys. I mean, he has a huge company in Missouri, St. Louis specifically, First Form. I've learned so much from him, from the MFCEO days to his new show. But I also have a really deep love for old world, new thought material, early days like Napoleon Hill, Earl Nightingale, Bob Proctor. I'm of the belief that information gets lost as time goes on. The farther away from the source you go, unless you're talking like some really crazy situations like the Quran, right? You're going to lose information. And I want to go as far back as possible. So even from Napoleon Hill, there are other new thought authors that are older than him. And Andrew Carnegie is a great example. He wrote many essays when he was alive, and he is the great American industrialist. And he has a collection of essays that were compiled into a book called The Empire of Business. And it's fascinating to see how many of those essays that were written over 100 years ago apply to us today, and really the industrial infrastructure of America. And that just, I love collecting those old texts and those old materials because I feel like I have a piece of history with me.
Absolutely. I do remember reading Napoleon Hill as well and training when I left and lived in New York City. And also, not to mention Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I got to read, I love reading a lot of the leadership books as well, like from the John Maxwell's of the world. Mm-hmm. It's definitely very fascinating.
Yeah, John Maxwell is a legend in the industry. He's been around for longer than we've been alive, which is fascinating to think you can have a career spanning that many. I don't even know how many books he's published in his lifetime, probably 24.
Absolutely. And speaking of lengthy careers, like especially with my career, I've always looked to people like Regis Philbin and Barbara Walters, who were in the industry for over 50 years. And I'd rather see myself be in the industry for a very, very long time. Currently, if you count my blogging and everything, and started way back in August 2011, and even though this is the 5th anniversary season of the podcast, it's been 5 years. I think overall 13 years, and I still have a long way to go, my friend.
Yes, but you have entered into, in my opinion, professionally, the top 1% of what you're doing. I mean, most people, when they launch a podcast, only do 20 episodes and they get 20 monthly listeners and they're like, all right, I'm done. And that's why whenever I'm working with a client, I had somebody today who was telling me, he's like, I'm considering launching my own show. And I told him, I said, Josue, you need to wait. And if you're going to do that, make sure you're going into it where this is over a year commitment. This is not something that you're going to do for a couple of weeks or a couple of months and call it a day. You need to go into it with the end in mind of, hey, this is a continual thing that you're working on.
Absolutely. And I love, as podcasters, we are able to use this platform to have incredible conversations. I never thought in a million years I would have a conversation with Howie Mandel or reality TV legends like John Brennan, Beth Stolaric of the MTV and Real World Challenge days. I never thought in a million years.
Mm-hmm. And the cool thing that you've never even probably thought of in this perspective, my job is personal branding, and a lot of that is reputation management, public relations. It's all kind of underneath that umbrella. Is by being in association with those people, your individual credibility goes up because you can land other guests that are of a higher caliber by saying, hey, come on the same show that Howie Mandel was on. And you can leverage those names by association to boost your own credibility. And that's the wonderful platform known as podcasting. So the people that are normally out of reach for us common folk, right, are actually within reach by just saying, hey, I have a stage. I would love to have a conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we got to get to, and while we're on the subject of podcasting, I want to say this. I'm not, as you said, not a lot of podcasters reach 1 year, but you, my friend, went to 4 years, and that's 3 to 4 years. And that's amazing. So I'm very proud of you. So you hosted the Chase the Vision with Isaac Mashman. So what were some of the most memorable podcast episodes, and how did you think podcasting actually helped you enhance your brand?
Mm-hmm. Well, I have to apologize if you're watching on video. The office lights just shut off, and I'm getting the studio set up and perfected. But I had the podcast for quite a long time. It was from 2019. I ended it in 2022, crossing over 100 episodes. And I viewed it in the sense of, number one, this is a good platform to reach new people. Number two is a great way to approach guests that would typically be out of reach that I can now have a conversation with. And it was one of those things where it was cool to have a vehicle that I could get people latched onto and committed to coming back every single time that week, or hey, I have something that I'm sharing. I have something of value, and people see that whenever you have a podcast and building up that committed following. That's why, I mean, now 2 years after the end of my last show, I'm launching a new show before the end of this year, which I'm ramping up and going to be getting that studio set up, called Call It Excessive with Isaac Mashman. And the perspective with the show is, in order to be a successful blogger or podcaster or business person, you have to make a lot of risks and take a lot of jumps. And that would be arguably excessive, right? People would call it excessive to, oh, you're taking all those sacrifices. But I believe that excessiveness is actually a requirement. And so really excited about working on that.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So when did you decide, okay, it was time to put your podcast to bed and start this new show?
It was this pursuit of clarity. I always talk about me going from business to business as a pursuit of clarity. I was looking for something better. I was looking, and I'm not saying I was looking for something better as I couldn't commit to one thing, but I knew that those things that I tried were not my vehicles long-term. And so with my show, Chase the Vision, it was cliche. It was that entrepreneur, hustle bro, hustle culture crap that I've ultimately moved on from. And now I wanted to end that and lead into something more mature. And it took me some time to figure out what that would look like. But now in 2024, I'm ready to come and hit the ground running, man.
And I cannot wait to hear your new show and see that. If you need a guest, let me know.
Absolutely.
All right. So I want to go back to, we got to leave the podcast world, talk about some of the challenges that you face and all entrepreneurs face building your own business. And so what were some of those challenges that you face and how did you overcome those obstacles?
One of the biggest issues I would say would be figuring out your offering. Whether you're doing a product-based business and you're selling lotions, potions, or coffee mugs, or you're doing software as a service, like a subscription-based business model. I had a call today and we're trying to figure out the pricing point. Or it could be, in my case, consulting. But even just in the consulting realm, you have 3 different ways you could charge. You can charge per retainer, you could charge for your time, or you could charge per session. And I tried all 3 of those until I finally landed on charging per session, not per hour. And you don't have the answers right off the bat. But as you go through and let's say you try the retainer model and you see some challenge, you see some things that come up with that, some problems, for example, the customer being able to fulfill their end of the deal and do their homework. Well, if they're having a problem with that, maybe you need to gap out the time. And so a retainer wouldn't be a good model. But I also knew that I didn't want to do some hourly rate and be like a lawyer. And so, well, why don't I offer per session instead? And that's also easier to scale up and have other consultants adopt that same framework. And that was a process that took me 2-3 years to really figure out. And you don't have those answers as soon as you start out in a business, but you try things and you see what sticks, you see what you like, you see what's efficient, you see what problems come up, you're able to address them and ultimately evolve. Business is a game of evolution.
Absolutely. And it took me years to figure that out, especially like when it came to marketing social media. I'm like, it took me kicking and screaming to get onto TikTok.
Why do you think that was?
I think because I was worried about China, the same old China was going to get my information and a little with privacy. And also the fact that I didn't want to dance or do anything like time consuming because I already have a lot on my plate. With building my brand up, looking for continuing to work on one job, look for work as outside work as well. So it was like time management played a huge role.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. And the cool thing about TikTok though is it's an application where the older generations are actually the fastest growing demographic. It's not that dancing app like it was a couple of years ago. Yes, those videos do extremely well, but if we think about what the purpose of content is, a piece of content can entertain, it can educate, it can connect, and it can inspire or motivate somebody. And as business owners and as podcasters, we tread that line of education, but we oftentimes don't tread that line of entertainment. And that's the challenge that a lot of people face, how they can make a podcast, for example, engaging to where somebody would listen to it, not just for personal development, but for their entertainment. Now that's where having good, high quality conversations and taking clips from the show and, maybe asking engaging questions or specific questions you ask every guest come in to where now you can go and walk those paths, simultaneously.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now I also have to make sure to keep up with those stuff as well, because it feels like at times that when as you and I both know as hosts, it's like sometimes we say, oh, look at the grass is always greener on the other side, because there are people in my industry. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe you got that guy, that lady, and knows God in that group. I was like, I've been waiting a long time to get them, but it's like, don't accelerate the process. You don't want to burn out.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely feels like that. So anyway, in addition to I love that you put all of your stuff into a book. So why did you decide to write personal branding, a manifesto on fame and influence? And how
Absolutely.
does that book stand out in the business category?
Definitely. Well, I have a copy of my book right here, and I'm working on the second edition. This is a relatively short read, 55 pages, published in 2021. The second edition is going to be well over 200 pages and really explain not only the what and why of personal branding, but my new philosophy on personal branding, which is called identity positioning. Now, what is identity positioning? Well, Jacob, where a lot of people go wrong online is they only focus on the brand and they don't focus on the person, right? They talk about their profession. Hi, how are you? Oh, work's stressing me out. How many times has that happened? They don't even talk about how their personal life is. They talk about their business because they make that their identity. And I want to bring people down a notch to where that personal side of you is what will connect people with you and build rapport, which is trust, and build those long-term relationships. And so my second edition of my book is going to talk about not only the what and why of personal branding, but also dive into reputation management and thinking about your personal brand as well, a business of its own that can be monetized, that can be built, that can be grown. And the cool thing about my book and about the second edition is it's not based off of strategies that work today. So it's not talking about Instagram growth hacking or Facebook hacking or any of that sorts, because there are so many social media books that are out there and they don't work anymore. They don't apply because the algorithm has changed, because the consumer market has changed. But I want to talk about the philosophical and psychological strategies that still apply. So for example, a really easy technique that people can use and adopt that I wrote about in my book is called the power of 3. And that is where you connect with 3 new people every single day, consistently for a year. By the end of a year, you'll have 1,000 new relationships built just by taking a couple minutes of your time every day to send out a new message. Super easy strategy. And I'm really grateful for my book because I was able to get it as the #1 new release on Amazon in public relations, top 10 bestseller in the same category. And the second edition will be so much bigger.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I got to say this. How long did it take you to write this first version? And and with the second version, is it taking longer because you're deciding, wait a minute, is this safe for volume 3, or I should have expanded upon that?
Well, it's interesting because when I published the first edition, I didn't think it would be a series of books. I didn't think it would be a series of editions like a textbook. And the writing process was not difficult, but coming up with the name and the first sentence was. And so one day I was walking, and the best ideas usually happen when you're the most peaceful and you're not stressed out, you're not thinking about much. And I was walking and I had this phrase hit my mind. What if I told you, or what if there was something so powerful? And I was like, man, and that's like the first state, you know, the first sentence. What if there was something so powerful that you could get nations to do your bidding, people to wake up and ask what they can do to support you? And I was like, man, as soon as I had that first sentence, I could write the rest of the book and formulate it. And my process of writing is I like to format the book and have the infrastructure laid out, just like you're building a house. And then I can worry on filling in the gaps and filling in everything else. And so the second edition, I have all of the chapters laid out of what I want to discuss, what I want to cover. And from there, I just go chapter by chapter. And I do voice to text. And so I'll sit down, I'll have Google Docs open, and I'll do voice to text and knock out 2 pages at a time. And then from there, go in and edit it for grammar. And writing a book is a tremendous feat, but it's something that is so achievable today because the barriers of entry are really low. You don't have to go through a publishing house to get a book published anymore. You can use Amazon KDP or Draft2 Digital or Barnes & Noble Press and all of these other tools to get your book out there into the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's definitely something about that. And one of these days, I definitely would love to write a book about all my ventures.
Do it. I challenge you.
All right. I may take you up on that challenge, and maybe for 40, I may do something.
Good.
All right. So who are your dream clients?
The best clients that I've ever worked with are the people who have built tremendous success offline, but have really done nothing online. So if you think about the lawyer who's been practicing law for 15 years and has a law firm, or a doctor or a business owner who is building a great company offline, but now wants to get onto the digital space and talk about their career, grow their business, or even go into the field of mentorship, those are usually the best clients in terms of revenue and being able to delegate tasks and giving me the flexibility to come in and lay the groundwork. Because Jacob, one of the worst things, but the best things I can hear as a consultant is that, Isaac, I wish I would have done this a couple of years ago. And so working with the people who are now getting onto that space and not knowing where to go, I'm able to come in and be their superhero. And, whether they're working with me or another consultant of MCG, it gives them that runway to take off.
Absolutely. And you brought up your consulting agency. What are you looking for? Because a lot of people who are watching this right now are looking for work and are thinking about consulting. So if they had a chance to say, hey, to email you and say, I would love to learn more about your firm or have an informational interview, what would you tell them? What are the qualities that you are looking for in potential people to join your companies?
I love that corporate question. I absolutely adore that. It's one of those things where I want people who have their own ambitions. I want the person who can align and attach their success with the firm's success, because we're not going to necessarily hold your hand and give you clients. I want you to go out and land your own clients, somebody who wants to build their own personal brand, somebody who wants to maybe write their own book or do their own public speeches. Those are the people who I can train up and say, hey, this is our methodology. This is identity positioning. This is how you can approach people. Go out into your own network, go out into your own world, and find people who also want to grow their personal brands. And it's one of those beautiful things where if they're making money, the firm's making money, and we have all of the resources and the training and the backbone and the structure and the credibility that can give them that boost rather than going out and being their own coach, right? I think that a lot of people today are doing personal brand coaching and consulting, and they lack that macroscopic view of it's more than your Instagram page. No, it's everything about you. That is your personal brand.
Absolutely, absolutely. So while we're on the subject of social media, let's talk about it. And what are your favorite ways to connect with people? And what are some of your favorite social media toolbox?
The number one performing piece of content right now is short form vertical video. This is dominated for the past 5 years. I mean, Gary Vaynerchuk was talking about this in 2018 when I was first starting out, and it has continued to grow and progress. That's TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. All of these platforms have short form vertical video. That's what triggers the algorithm. And that's also what connects people on more than just the auditory sense, but also now they're able to see you. They're able to feel your emotions, your body language. And that kind of content allows you to really get started without any barrier. You can take 60 seconds and record the video and use an artificial intelligence like captions. AI is what I use, and get a video that looks high quality in a couple of minutes.
Absolutely, absolutely. So last question, are you ready?
Hit me.
Where can my audience find more information about Mashman Consulting Group, Mashman Investments, and Mashman Properties, and also connect with you on social media and also purchase your book?
Loaded question. I would say the best thing you can do is run a quick Google search on my name. Go to Google, type in Isaac Mashman. You can see all of my information there. How can I be in the personal branding space if I don't have the ability to say that, right? And so you can also connect with me by going to my website, isaacmashman.com/book. That's where you can purchase my manifesto, or by Amazon. And you can also, to learn more information about maybe becoming a consultant of MCG, go to mashmancg.com or connect with us on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. So guys, have you missed an episode of the Drake's Take with Jacob Elyachar Podcast? Visit our channels on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Podchaser, Spotify, and Spreaker. Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar, JACOBELYACHAR. Now, are you on social media? I'm on social media too. Let's connect and visit my channel on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. It's Jacob Elyachar, JACOBELYACHAR. Want to know what's going on with America's Got Talent? Want to see more of my interviews or maybe a music review? Visit the blog that started it all, jakes-chick.com. Once again, jakes-chick.com. Isaac, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to talk with me today. I really appreciate it.
Jacob, the pleasure was all mine. Can't wait for a second conversation.
Absolutely. And guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, have a great one, everybody. Goodbye.